we're just getting going here. I'm going to in terms of, it says seminar, but basically also going to be a long Q&A session for you guys. But then backing back up again, guys. So I got out of sequence there when she popped up. One more time, I'm Eric Swartz, WA6HHQ at Elecraft.com, and Wayne Burdick, N6KR, and I started Elecraft back. I think we actually incorporated around 1999, so that's our official date. That we started working on it in 1998. And Margaret, your video is back again. Oh, she's still. We'll let that go. Do you see that also, Kevin? Is that coming up?
Yeah, I did see your video also.
But yeah, she's back off, so we're okay. But in any case, we've obviously been having a lot of fun doing a lot of products for you over the last 20 plus years. I'd like to talk about our latest one, the K4 transceiver, and give you a feel for what that's all about. I'm sure a number of you are already quite familiar, having either seen the ads or talked to us before, but so I'm going to keep it short in terms of basic features. I'm going to cover some new stuff also that they may not be aware of, and then answer questions for anything I've left out, because I'm going to not give you a whole half an hour PowerPoint show or anything like that. I want to keep it a little more personal. I'm down here literally in my basement office and lab. These days of social distancing, I've been doing a lot of work from down here, obviously, instead of at our labs and offices at the main office. But be glad to show you some live stuff on the K4. And as a matter of fact, what I've got going here, by the way, just to give you a feel for the layout right now. Behind me is one of my lab, actually real K4s here. This is actually a field test version. And actually, I've got a production version that I stuck somewhere safe so I wouldn't bump into it over here. So you get a feel for the size of it. It's not terribly heavy. It doesn't require you to have a lifting jack or anything else to hand cart to move around. You can see all the connections in the back. We can talk about those more later. Just to give you a feel for what she looks like, and easily transportable too. I think if I recall correctly, Kevin, the weight's I think about 10 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm sure it's on the web. I may be off a little bit, but I'm going to give you a feel for that. On the screen here, okay, getting back, you've got my operating position here. Got another KPA 500 here. There's actually KPA 1500 back here and another K3. And also on the K4, I've got actually 3 of our K-pods hooked up. We've got USB connections on the front, which I'm using in the front one right now for actually a mouse connection. 2 more on the back. So you wonder how did I hook up 3 of these guys and I'm not using the front one. I have a hub plugged into one of the extra USB jacks on the back, and that allows me to add as much as I want from a USB standpoint. So it's pretty flexible that way. You can hook up external keyboards, of course, mouse, like I've got here, a number of other things like these human input devices, if you want to call that the K-pods, that give us VFO control. I'll go through those a little bit more also a bit later. I've got running here, just for fun, I've got FT8. I'm not an active FT8 user. I actually use it mostly to see where the band's opened up to, so I can scan up and see that quickly. I see we're seeing a lot of stuff out of China and Japan here on the West Coast right now. Of course, the usual US guys in there too. But I have a 4-element step IR beam on the roof right now on 20 meters, and it's in bidirection mode, so I'll catch stuff on from both directions, but that gives full activity. On the other band, I'm watching the sideband part of 20 meters. Now you'll see on your screen, if you go into gallery view, I'd recommend if you go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you aren't already in this mode, and it says view, choose gallery view, because you'll see the other, if it's not projecting both my screens, you'll see them if you do that. And the second screen I'm projecting is actually a webcam on a video monitor that's actually split off from this one, the exact same thing I have here. I'm actually reproducing the main screen on the radio. Actually, the radio has the capability. I'll show you here real quick. Actually, I can go into the menu. So you can see when I go into menus and stuff, you'll see that on the screen. Again, that's, if you're in, I think you're in gallery view, you see it. I'm not sure if you will, if you're not in gallery view. If you're only seeing me, you want to go up to the upper right-hand corner and click on the view icon and zoom and bring up gallery view. But I can go through here and quickly change the external monitor here. Hold on a second.
Eric, a couple comments for you. One is W0MD would like to see non-FT signals at some point.
If the band's open, I will.
Yeah, 20 meters, and people say that they are able to see both screens fine.
Good. That's what I wanted to see. So I can check the external monitor function. And
Scott will get to shipping at some point.
just since we're here, I can change the external monitor function if I want to just be pan adapter. This one will not be super bright, but you get a feel for it. I'm using actually externally for the to show the monitor to you guys. I thought I had a good video capture working, and Windows 10 updated and the software for that stopped working. So I had to take a second monitor that's wide off of the same HDMI feed that this monitor is being driven to off the back of the radio. That's sitting to my other side here with a little webcam on a tripod pointed at it. So I apologize for the lower contrast on it, but that's the pan adapter only screen that we can set up. I can make that a single pan adapter or a regular pan adapter, just single, single pan adapter. Also, I can go through and change that actually real quick here, just so you can see that. If I go to that, and I think if we set that to, and there I am showing just VFOA, for instance, on it at the moment. And I can also bring up, that's separate. You don't see all the buttons and everything else. So if you want to not be duplicating the whole main screen, you can do that. I can also make it be VFOB, which is all of sideband on 20. And we actually have one signal out there right now, actually a couple. And I can jump down real quick. Where'd they go? That guy's real weak. Let's see what this guy's saying. And that's a local cable, guy's solar arrays power supplies. I'm not hearing it seen a lot right now. Unfortunately, I don't have a 40-meter antenna at the house here. So that's my problem doing these talks late in the day. I'm not going to have a lot to look at on that part of the band. I apologize for that.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Question, will the pan adapter bandwidth go above 384 kilohertz?
Yes. Currently, we go to 384 in native mode. We've got so much extra bandwidth, we can actually stitch those together super quickly. That's all done separately from the radio receive paths and everything else separate. We actually have a coming off the front analog to digital converter that goes into a field programmable gate array that then provides us with our audio streams for two different logical receivers and a pan adapter stream. And we can actually bounce that back and forth if you only have a K4 with a single analog digital converter. You don't even see us doing it, to give you two different pan adapters in the same band, for instance, like I'm doing here. I have a K4D here, which has the second analog to digital converter. So we have a whole nother duplicate sort set there. That speed's so fast that the pan adapter data coming down, we're actually not displaying it at full speed. I've got it slowed down a bit so it doesn't just flash too much at me. And basically we can stitch 2 or 3 of those together to get up to close to a megabyte, megahertz, excuse me, on it. So that's the goal. That hasn't been implemented yet. It's at the 384 right now, but that'll be coming along with the software update. Other question, Kevin?
Eric, a related question is the resolution bandwidth of the Panafall as good as the P3?
Yes. If anything, it might even be a little bit better. I forget if it's a 1000 point or 2048 point FFT, but it's very good. It's a function, of course, of your span. So basically, of course, you reduce the span, you get more and more, less and narrower and narrower resolution bandwidth on that. So you get a very nice display on that. It's, if anything, equal to or better than the P3. Second, let me go back to the mirror display here. I was just showing the display here for a second. Let me do that.
So for the questions about when are we going to ship, Eric will cover that later in the discussion.
Okay, hold on a second here. We are shipping, just not fast. It hasn't been as fast as I wanted, obviously. Hold on. And then we mirror LCD and save that. And it'll flash up there in just a second. And there we are. We're back. Now that's mimicking exactly what I've got on this screen right now. It's for your benefit so you can see what I'm punching at. So I'll show you some of the other features in a little bit on here, but that gives you a feel for how we can be set up and stuff. So getting back to the radio, I'm going to get a quick 1 or 2 page, you want to call it that, overview on what the K4 is. I know most of you, this may be redundant, but I'll do it real quick for the new folks that are on here. And then I'll jump into some of the features. And Kevin, feel free to interrupt me if there's questions while I'm showing off the features.
Lots of questions, but I'm moderating them a bit.
No, that's fine. We're going to have more than we can ever answer here, but it's a good start. We'll be doing more of these, by the way, too. So hopefully, as we add new features to it, you can see those too. So it's a high-performance direct sampling SDR. as opposed to SDRs that are operating at the IF level like the K3 did, where it had the superhead front end and the 8.2 megahertz mixed down that case down to about 15 kilohertz, I think, for the DSP. Here we did all the DSP modulation, demodulation, and handling in the back end on it. And then in the case of the K4, we're direct sampling with a very high-speed analog devices, LTC 2208 at 122.8 megahertz. That then is digitally down converted. Think of it like mixing down, but done through digital logic, a high-speed field programmable gate array. That, as I mentioned earlier, brings down to 2 receive channels. It actually has its own like numerical controlled oscillator inside that gate array, so we can tune each one anywhere we want inside the effective, say, 55 megahertz or 60 megahertz bandwidth of the analog to digital converters RF sampled spectrum. So we can pick a narrower bandwidth of that and down convert and have a narrow bandwidth of that and come out for both the audio chains for left and right receive channels, but also and transmit, of course, and also receive channels on that side, and then also we have that separate one for the pan adapter that comes down. So in the case of the direct sampling here, there's no analog mixing or analog filters outside in terms of crystal narrowband filters. We do have, of course, bandpass filters in the front end, nice sharp ones for that. Of course, low pass filters also, which are in the receive and transmit path. And that's the only other filtering that is analog up in that part with, of course, the high power deck there for 100 watts too. We cover 160 through 6 meter transceive at 100 watts. All modes, of course. The SDR doesn't care about that, so we can do pretty much data modes, which we have some built in, like the K3, PSK31, RTTY, FSK, or you can go from the keyboard or by sending what we call KY commands over the serial or USB ports, or even the Ethernet to send stuff from the radio, or of course come in externally with FSK or AFSK for transmit and receive, which is how I'm hooked up, of course, for the on AFSK for the and data mode for the FT8 stuff. It's sitting here on the screen behind me at the moment. By the way, if I see it, Kevin, if you see over my shoulder or actually on the other screen some sideband pop up on 20 meters, I'll dial that in too for us.
Yeah, I'll keep looking. It's there faintly. A question: can you do different bands on each VFO? That's from Fujinaka-san.
The answer is yes. On the K4D, we've got 2 separate A to D converters, which can use 2 separate antennas. So they could be on different bands with optimized antennas for both bands. On the K4, which only has 1 analog to digital converter, you can do that with the single analog to digital converter coming down to the 2 streams for receive. But because there's only 1 receive path, it has to be on the same antenna. So yes, it could be if it's a multi-band antenna, you could have 2 different bands, but we would have to turn off the bandpass filters automatically. It does that if you do it, because of course those are per band on the radio. Whereas in the case if you have a K4D, there's total flexibility. There you have 2 sets of bandpass filters, 2 antennas, or share the same antenna if you want. And you can have 2 different bands on the display. I just happen to be showing it with that one guy now, but I could actually go over here right now and change the other guy, say, to 7 megahertz. I'm not going to see much. Actually, that'd be the wrong one there, but get out of that. 21 megahertz, say. And actually, I turned off B-set there, so I just did that guy. Did the wrong band. That's why it was complaining to me. Go back there. If I go to B-set, I can adjust the BVFO. Pop-up band, I can pop that down to 7 megahertz, for instance. Now, what I'm seeing right now, the only thing I'm seeing is a bunch of digital noise inside my house at the moment. So that's not going to help at all. But that gives you an idea of what we can do with it. I'll put this back on 14 where it was before here. Let's see.
Eric, a somewhat couple, or maybe not related, but a handful of questions have asked, can we compare the audio of a CW pilot between a K3 and a K4?
Oh.
And describe how the K4 works better than a K3 in deciphering a pilot mush.
The mush factor, as some people call it, and it's dramatically different on the K4 versus the K3. K3 was good, of course, very narrow filtering, but when you have a bunch of guys, especially almost right on top on the same frequency, of course, it's running exactly the same frequency. I don't know if any radio can pick them apart. They have to have a little frequency variation to it, or big signal level variations. But the K4, because it's not going through crystal filters and other physical narrowband filters at that narrow rate. You don't have the group delay and distortion that adds, which can add to what they call mush factor in the radio, and for pulling out pileups. So as a result, you have a lot lower distortion overall in the K4's operation. And we've had comments from our field testers, and I'll let Kevin, who's one of them, actually comment, is that the fatigue factor in a contest or working pileups, things like that, both being able to pull out the signals is quite good, with the fatigue factor is also quite a bit lower than most other radios, including the K3. Can you comment on that, Kevin, also?
Oh yeah, absolutely. People may know me as a strong flex user, and the flex has got very, very good quietness, easy to use. The K4 is much better than the flex in that regard, and much better than the K3. In contests that I've used it in, it's very easy to pick things out. You don't hear all the distortion products that Eric talked about. Additionally, TV Bob N6TV has used it more extensively than I have, especially in CW contests, and I think he's made a similar comment. So drop an email to him, or drop an email to the Elecraft K4 reflector or the Groups IO thing, and you can hear what some people have said. I think Bob has actually put out an audio of it, but yeah, it's very quiet. It's probably one of the easiest listening radios I've ever used. Back to you, Eric.
We did not pay Kevin to say that either.
No, not at all.
No, Kevin.
Kevin,
if it's not good, Kevin's going to tell me right away. I've learned that working with him over the years, and as he's had our radios and stuff, certainly, because he's been on a lot of the expeditions too, and has been using them for that. So actually, the dual RX and our versions I mentioned with dual pan adapters, they don't have to stay at dual, as I mentioned, on either screen. I'm showing I can actually control the external screen when I have that separate pan adapter only mode, and the internal screen, and one could be split, and the other one could be everything, whole band of one band if you wanted. Or right now, since I have them tied together, I can just bring that up and go over here and change it, for instance, to, let's see, go here. That's on the external one, I'm sorry. Let's do it on LCD, there we go. So for instance, I just switch that one, and then you can see it spread out the signals quite a bit. Go back to split mode here. By the way, we've got, I mentioned we have dual pan adapters. They have their own noise blanker for the sort of visual noise you'll get from electrical noise and stuff on the band, that you can use when you have impulse noise and stuff. And that'll get rid of it on the pan adapters also, which is important because we have very good noise blankers in the radio from the audio stream and that demodulated stream. But a lot of times pan adapters, and we finally added it in the P3 in the past, need to have a noise blanker also, so you don't have that effectively raising the noise level. So that's available on here too. Couple things is you can basically put this guy back, by the way. Not probably decoding as well as I want. I probably bumped that, and I'm going to lock that VFO. There's FTA. Won't hurt your ears with that. But from a bandwidth standpoint, we have two ways of adjusting bandwidth on the radio. On the left here, there's a little knob I'm adjusting, and you'll see in the middle of the display that you've got there on the left-hand side, there's a series of, like it says, mic, power, VW, shift, and so on. For some reason, I'm not picking up, yeah, I am catching the secondary stuff. It's not, the colors aren't coming through on the video, on the screen capture I've got. Those are in yellow. So I can switch back and forth between mic and compression. I'm just tapping that button right now to do that. And if I go down here, I can change bandwidth or go to high cut, low cut, like that, and our bandwidth and shift. So you have a continuous, you have a knob right here. There's three knobs on the side of the radio. I'll maybe pick up this other one so you get a better picture of it. Then I'll bounce back down. So you can see here, there's three knobs. Oops, mirrored here. I have to go to this side. Three knobs on the side of the radio, which basically correspond to those three groups of two icons on the left of the screen. So you can see what the knob can control. And you can tap the knob actually to change, for instance, in the top knob between mic and power. And I can adjust power up and down all I want, and up to 100 watts. It goes to 1 watt resolution, I think above 10 watts. Let me see how it does. And correspondingly, mic gain, which would help if I turn my mic gain up there. And you can adjust that. And if I tap the mic thing on the screen, it goes there, and I can actually adjust the compression and so on the radio. So those basically are very simple to use, but the bandwidth is continually adjustable, as I'm adjusting this one here. Typically around 3 kilohertz for FT8. It's going to be around usually, it's somewhere between 2.8 and 2.4 for most people, or if you're narrowing down when you have interference, you keep doing that. Now, if I had the screen a little bit narrower, you could actually see the cursor on the screen to the right here for sideband actually going in and out. And I can maybe show that a little bit later on. Zoom in on the section there and show how that affects the icon. But you have that, but also you have the ability to save the filter FIL button here on the right, like it had on the K3 for selecting crystal filters. You can store your favorite bandwidths in that. And I punch through that, you'll see that change there, 2.2, 3.0, 3.3, 2.8, and so on. So those are the ones I happen to have saved. So you can actually store those settings and rotate through them for each mode. So you have two quick ways of changing bandwidth, which is nice also. Down at the bottom is the third control down here, controls RF gain, and you can, by tapping it, control your sub RF gain or your main RF gain through the radio, which is pretty cool. Just may do something here real quick so I can see the rest of my screen. There we go. A couple other things. To mention, no crystals required in the K4 or the K4D. We have a user adjustable, by the way, receive and transmit EQ. If I tap the button down here on the screen, I can bring up the, actually right here, main RX. You see a new set of buttons up there on the bottom of the screen, and one of them is receive equalization. And you can actually move my finger up and down here, but you can move the EQ up for each band setting you want. And if you're adjusting for your high frequency if you want it. For those of us that are getting older, you can do that. And same thing on the transmit too for your microphone adjustment. Now, if you made it all screwed up, you can hit flat and put them all back to the same. You can also use a VFO where you can just pick a band and move the VFO up and down. See that going up and down too. Just to give you an idea of how that can be set up. And the same thing, if you go over to TX, you'll see a TX EQ exactly the same way. We try not to nest things too deep. It's just basically one step down, to get into most of the setup for the radio or adjustments. Those you don't have to change too much while you're operating the radio. The idea is to stay at the top level with the physical buttons and the few that like band buttons like we have on the screen here for changing band or mode. And those are nice and large. You can hit them with your thumb or large fingers, and it's not a problem hitting them at all. And by the way, for mode, we do have a mode button over here, which will bring up a mode selection, so you can change the mode you're in. If I want to go USB, tap it again for the opposite side band, the LSB, and so on. CW reverse, and back. Go back to data here. But also, and you can get out of this there, it'll time out also. But you can also just touch up on an icon on the screen. So if I'd actually touch the mode here, you can see VFO-A's in data mode, VFO-B's in USB. If I tap that, it'll bring up the same mode, and you can change it there too. So we try to make things redundant where you can get to it a couple different ways, but it's wherever you're at, you can adjust things quickly. I mentioned it's a high-res touch screen here, and the external monitor, by the way, is a 1920 by 1080 monitor, high-res. The camera is not doing it justice in terms of how sharp both these displays are. And again, what you're looking at right now is a camera pointed at a 27-inch monitor with the external the display mirrored to it. So it's not picking up near the resolution you have in the room. It's very sharp. But people have seen it at shows, you recognize that too.
Can I drop in with a couple questions?
Yeah, I'll pause. Go ahead.
So I got a number of questions open. I want to try and get a couple answered for people. Whiskey 6 India Zulu Tango asked, the HDMI interface is a nice feature, but I would prefer not to use an entire monitor to display the pan adapter. Can the pan adapter be displayed as a window on a monitor?
I can't win. I mean, it's not something I have control of on the radio, because if you're talking about a computer, Greg, you might text this back. Are you talking? I assume you're talking about a computer monitor. It's got computer stuff like your logging stuff and things like that. I can't control that video because I'm just putting out standard video that a monitor normally would interpret as a whole monitor video. If you do want to have multiple windows, though, there are some of the newer monitors that have multiple simultaneous HDMI inputs coming into them. And those in turn, you can do that. You could have, one virtual, I think Dick K6KR, who has software for us, has a large monitor, actually can be four 1920 by 1080 windows simultaneously. And so you could have us in one, a login program, or other stuff in another, or just two if you want. You can pick the mix. I think you can pick which ones are turned on. That's probably the best way to do it. But in terms of our stuff here, when we drive a monitor externally, unless I was the source of the other video, which of course then I could mix things together. There's no way for me to do a window on a standard monitor. It's just going to have a single input, and you want to put it all on the whole screen. But
okay, next question. Bob Evans, Kilo 5 Whiskey Alpha.
Bob, go ahead.
He asked a couple of questions about the API. His first question is, when would the API be released in full?
We keep adding stuff in the document. There's one up there right now. I think it's on the web. It should be in the documents section on Elecraft under support manuals. You'll see the K4 programming interface on it right now. They're just adding going to be adding the streaming pan adapter stuff pretty quick here. And also, but everything else remote controlling the radio, I think, is already in there right now. That's what he's referring to. The audio streaming stuff will be on there pretty quickly too, because those are all coming up right now. But that I'd say is probably about 90% there right now. I know everything necessary to do basic control on the radio is already there, because it's pretty much a extension of what we did with the K3. So we'd be compatible with a lot of stuff. Logging programs, you tell it it's a K3. It pretty much works right now as is. I don't think, Kevin, you guys have had no problem in field testing, right? In terms of basic, wind test or M1MM, things like that, interfacing with it.
Yeah, no, I don't know what the external view is right now, but internally I use the API for all kinds of testing.
Yep.
So it's working good.
Yeah, we're using it for our bench test and automated production test and final checkout. We can scan by controlling external with our burning and test programs. We can, of course, with a whole bunch of K4s on the rack burning in, it's talking to them either over Ethernet or in this case, probably USB, and an external program running over the API. The same API, by the way, is allowed. You can do it through the COM port. There's a physical, like a DB9 RS-232 COM port. There's a USB-B, which of course goes to a USB-A connector into your computer, traditional COM over USB for that, and over Ethernet. So you can also do all, they're all independent, by the way. They all can be doing their own thing. And of course, the radio responds to the last one to send something that changes frequency or band or whatever. But if they're querying the radio for information, they will only see their query come back. The other channels don't, which is nice. So it's fully independent channels on that too. That's very flexible. But our burn-in software talks to it, for instance, over USB to each of the radios. They're all on a rack with dummy loads, and runs through all the bands, tests it, watches for, like querying the radio for temperature issues or current, anything that's off, make sure the power output is correct. In the case of receiver sensitivity testing, we actually have external HP SIGGENs. I've got one, you can probably see way in the back there underneath the oscilloscope. That's an 8647 or an 8648. But we use those under HPID to computer interface, control with the same program. And then we're also talking, in addition to controlling it, to the K4 to put them on the same band and frequency and step through all the bands, measure the noise floor, and then signal increase. When we give it a standard, say an S, minus 107 dBm signal, you can calculate MDS from that. And that controls the radio. So we're using that API for all of our testing also on the radio at the moment.
Okay. I've gotten a handful of questions about pure signal.
We're not implementing that on first ship. We've got the hardware path in there, and that looks good. But that's more of a future feature that'll come out. We're not going to charge for it, but that we already have the external sample in. So if you have an external, we also have an internal coupler picking up if you want it off the 100 watt output. But if you have an amplifier or something like that, we can pick it off there and linearize the whole chain. I suspect pure signal is a trademark for Born Pratt with the HDSDR stuff that he's done, or the WDSP, I guess he calls it. And so I won't be calling it that name, but in terms of our pre-distortion scheme to accomplish roughly the same thing, we'll support it for that hardware. That is not going to ship on the units going out the door the first day. We've been pretty careful not to overcommit on that. We want to make sure we get the radio out with all the features you're going to be asking for, added onto it over time here too.
Next question, how much flexibility do you have to change the colors of the display or menu items?
Right now, we do not have any way to change the color of the display or the menu items. That's a possibility, of course. You can't see it. You can see it a little bit in the display now. I apologize, it's a little bit washed out with the camera I'm using on the external monitor to show you the radio. But if you look at the top of the display, you'll see the A and B icons. A is actually locked. If I unlock it, you'll see a little change there on the screen. Again, if you came in here later, make sure you're viewing this in gallery mode. I think you need that to see both screens. The A is actually the color of, is actually a light sort of teal blue, and the B is green. And the BVFO, wherever it is, will show up that way on the screen in terms of the cursors too, the same color. So everything's all matched on that. And of course, the white lettering is, if you're not running in dual receiver mode, like I had sub turned off here. Well, actually, it's dual receiver mode. It's just not dual, what we call K4D mode. You can see a little K4D come on when I turn on the sub receiver there. There's a light you can see above the VFO that says the sub is on too. So I can receive on 2 different antennas when I do that. But that basically is all tied down to how our system views red for the critical transmit items. So you can see where the transmitter is pointed and things like that. So at this point, it's not like a 2-meter or VHF radio where you're just changing the background or something of an LCD display. And this is like a TV LCD display where you've got, not a multi-segment one, but a complete sort of like a, high-res color display. So for us to go through and change that, that would require a complex design of all of it. So at this point, with the first ship, we're not going to do that. Might do it down the road. I'm not going to promise it up front because but the only thing I think you might see is what we did in the pan adapter for the P3 for people that are colorblind, and do a grayscale version of it also. So I think you'll see that first from us in terms of custom colors and stuff, because we do understand the medical need for that. So we're going to try to get that in there fairly quickly.
So Jim Sharp wants to know, will the Superhead, the add-on, be better, the HD better than very good bandpass filters when doing SO2R with the K3?
That's a good question. It's using the same bandpass filters as the K4 has in it, which are a little bit different than the K3s, but not a whole bunch different. I'm just thinking out loud here. What the HD option, just for those of you that aren't familiar with that, that really buys you additional blocking dynamic range, anywhere from 10 to 15 dB more for really rare situations where you're getting descents. And by the way, I've, at least in the lab here, not been able to create serious descents on it with any kind of signals we expect to see in most of those situations on the bands. But usually in SO2R, also you're using external bandpass filters, if I remember correctly. But band, when you're on opposite band, different bands, especially what you're talking about here, the bandpass radios in the K4 are quite good. So I think you're going to be able to do similar stuff when you use the K3 there with it. What the HD option is, and all these are upgradable. You can upgrade from a K4 to a K4D. It basically adds another bandpass filter board, another direct digital down converter with the analog to digital board they plug into the radio, and that gives you the K4D capability with the second antenna / redundant receive path. So you have with bandpass filters, so you have a totally, you can do diversity reception that way, things like that. That's a huge improvement there. And then when you go to the K4 HD, it's again another card or two that gets plugged in there for basically a superhet front end with crystal filters in it, though the final filtering is being done in the very narrow filtering being done by the DSP. But the crystal filters will allow you to even handle extremely strong signals, even to the point where your neighbor down the block on 160 running a 1.5 kilowatts, 5 kilohertz from you probably will not, unless he's got a dirty transmitter, probably won't cause huge problem for you though. Don't hold me for it, because I know there's a lot of different quality radios out there that in terms of transmit quality, I want to make sure that it's a clean one like ours. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Next question from Eric Norris, whose call I could never remember. How does noise blanking and noise reduction compare with the K3, both out of the box and in future development?
I think it's equal to or better on both. I've been very happy with the noise blanking on it. And the noise reduction is, we're actually, we've got good noise reduction in there right now, but we're continuing to add a whole bunch of new features to it over time. So one thing I wanted to show you guys real quick, by the way, that in terms of upgrading when we add new stuff, you don't have to use an external computer to do that. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through it and do it here, but I can basically bring up, and you'll see that here. It may turn my radio off when I exit it. Maybe if I don't do any actual updates, but if I go into here and I choose update, you can see there. And actually, I just tapped on software list. That shows me my current software. But I go back out of that and go into hold it for update. it'll bring me in there. Actually, you can, in my case, I've got stuff I can see that's more than what your customer would usually see. But we basically, for internal development, we've got a nightly release for engineering that we work with. There's a field test release that, if you're a field tester, if new guys come in for field tests, for instance, they want to do it with us in the future, we'll only be able to see field test and the production release and the previous production release and the option, the beta release if we release it, and a USB drive. They won't see the field test version if you're a field tester. If you're a production user, you won't see the field tester nightly releases. Those are internal direct ones, and the radios have to be enabled for that to see those. We don't want you loading stuff that might be buggy before we had a chance to test it, obviously. But you basically can hit a button, pick one of those. I'll pick the nightly release because that's what I work with, and I can hit check for updates. And I just did that. And in my case, the software's up to date. If the software wasn't, it would come back and say, hey, there's a new load one. If you want to do it, go ahead and hit it. You hit the install button to the right. I'm not going to do that right now. That will automatically load it. I've got an Ethernet cable plugged in the back, or if I had a little, where did I grab it? Let me grab this one. Hold on. Some of you say, hey, I don't have Ethernet in the shack, but I've got Wi-Fi. There's a number of these things. This is one I just bought off of Amazon. It's made by Brotrend, but for $29, $39, $49, they can be used as repeaters in the house on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, but they also have an Ethernet jack off the back, and they provide basically a direct connection. They just act as a bridge to your system. So I just have this plugged in over in the bench where I'm using some doing some K4 work, and I want to upgrade them when I'm working over there. I don't have an Ethernet, hardwired Ethernet over there like I have here on this bench. I just plug this in and have a cable going down from it. There's a number of other ones out there from different manufacturers. They all work. And it doesn't require the radio to do anything software-wise. It literally works well with that. In addition, but basically you can upgrade over the internet and not have to download stuff into your computer and go through that download process. It's pretty much built into the radio if you want to use it that way. If you don't have that internet handy and you want to get an upgrade to it, maybe the internet's only available in another part of your house or different location, we're going to be providing software where you can download it onto a flash drive. That's why you noticed when you were in there before. Let me exit out of this here. It's going to restart me here, but it will let you download a package, basically a single file that has all of our current release on it. Production release, and then you can put that in the USB jack, I think in the back of the radio for the firmware updates, and that will do exactly, it'll be an option, you just load it exactly the same way. So you've got that option doing it either way. So getting back to the question, as we add new better features, either filtering stuff, or say we change noise blanket topology in the DSP, we can do better versions, we'll do that. But on top of that, or noise reduction improvements, things like that. Any of those, as you see, we add new features to it, and for instance, when you add the wider bandwidth for the PAN adapter, that will be available in the new release, and away you go. You can take advantage of it once you load it. What else you got, Kevin?
Will diversity-based noise reduction be shipped with day one products, or will it be a future software update?
Diversity-based noise reduction. I haven't really implemented anything from a noise reduction yet. It's a function, obviously, in the DSP for it. We do the diversity where you can hear on both sides, of course, for each receiver. So when it fades at different times, if you're using different antennas, you're tuned to the same frequency. We lock them together on the same VFO. It'll support that, of course. If you're talking about diversity where what I've done, I have an external delay box, for instance, I can add into it. And I'm coming on diversity, and basically you can steer a null if you're listening around on top of stuff. And we might be able to do that in the DSP also. I have to take a look at that, but not on the first ship right now. That was not part of the original plan to put that in there, but I want to put it in there, so it may creep in here later on.
Next question, Whiskey 6 India Zulu Tango. Are the parameters of the APF, such as bandwidth and gain, adjustable?
I believe, I'm not sure about gain. I know, Kevin, isn't the bandwidth adjustable? I'm pretty sure it is.
Bandwidth adjustable. I don't know about the gain.
Yeah. I mean, if we need gain adjustable, we can always add that in. I know the bandwidth is adjustable on it for the auto peaking. I mean, the what do you call it? The peak filter, basically APF filter, and for picking out the weak CW signals. Those are great, and like we have on the K3. So you'll be able to adjust that bandwidth at that little top peak on top of the shelf back and forth quite a bit. So that'll work on it also.
Kilo one Echo Papa, Ed Parrish asks,
Hi, Ed.
asks if we can display both values for the mic and compression at the same time.
Well, when you're in transmit, we put it in test mode here. Yeah, I mean, we display not the mic gain, but you're going to see the ALC, which is effectively from the mic. And I think you can toggle that to compression. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to do that on here. I've forgotten. I know you can show, I don't think you'll show ALC and compression at the same time, though. I think it's one or the other, but not positive. But you see that pops up on the display there when you go into transmit. So right now I have RF, ALC, SWR, and I am actually at a loss how to switch it because I haven't been using it that way lately. But I know you can do that. But, see if I change that to compression. I wonder if it does that. No, it doesn't. So I have to double check how we do that. I'm not positive how to bring up the compression on it, but you can display compression too. But I don't think it shows mic gain. Well, mic gain you'd be able to see from the control because the control is up there, and you could be adjusting. So there's the mic gain there. And if you want to see what your compression, how you're hitting your compression, we'll be able to display that up there at the same time along with the ALC. So usually adjust mic gain for your ALC more than anything. And once you've got that set properly, you can go and adjust your compression to get the amount of compression you want on top of
that. How does the K4 compare to K3 in weak signal isolation and high noise levels on the band?
I'd say equal to or better. We've got extremely narrow filtering. You can take it down, digitally all the way down to close to 50, I think 50 hertz on it on CW, or in sideband if you wanted to. And it's very sensitive. We basically have equal to or actually even better sensitivity on especially the upper bands than the K3 had. But on all the bands, it's excellent sensitivity. Of course, the narrow filters, quiet receiver. It's very quiet. I think you're going to see equal to or better performance from that performance testing.
A related question is, how close is the K4 to the limit of what a direct sampling receiver can achieve?
It all depends how much you want to span for analog to digital converters, I think, more than anything. I mean, I'd say all these radios are going to, all the SDRs out there can improve over time from their back-end processing with the digital signal processor. We've got a very high speed ADSP 2149, I think it is, digital signal processor in there, and that handles all the modulation, demodulation, transmit waveforms, on that side of compression, of course, and filtering and so on. So that has a lot of flexibility in terms of what we can add in the future to it, which is nice. And that sees, you can get both receive paths coming down to it, and it's processing all those simultaneously. And those are coming directly from the architecture. It's basically down converted to a lower speed RF stream, obviously, then coming in at 122.8 by the time we narrow the bandwidth down in terms of what bandwidth we're processing for receiving, not pan adapter, but receiving on it. And by the way, the pan adapter is handled by a different processor, not by the core DSP processor. And then the DSP can handle those two streams and process those. We've got a lot of overhead available on that. So there's a lot of growth there. The one area in terms of performance, in terms of picking up more dynamic range and things like that, is a function, down the road of what the next generation analog to digital converters are going to come out with that we can afford. And I could go out and buy a military one right now that costs more than the radio is being sold retail, but it might cost me more than the radio retail price. So we probably wouldn't be able to effectively use those. There's some really nice stuff out there if you're doing that kind of work, and more bits, better linearity, and so on. But we'll see that also improve on the stuff that's accessible for our market at a reasonable cost. And what's nice about this is we can, over time, just like we did new synthesizers in the K3, we can come out with a new digital down converter board with a new analog to digital converter on it for either a K4 or K4D, one or two of those. And people can upgrade, say 5 years down the road if they come out or whatever with new ADs that are whiz bang and make sense. We'll say, hey, that'll be the K4D plus, and for you guys, you want to upgrade that part of it, we'll sell them to you also to upgrade your K4s, so you don't have to K4Ds and K4s, so you don't have to go out and buy a brand new radio. So we'll make money on that too, certainly, but not as much as we'd be selling new radios. But that said, that's it's been our sort of, what we wanted to build the company on, is give you that upgrade path on any of our radios that way.
Okay. There's a large number of questions about remote operation. Is this a good time to cover it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I can bounce around a little bit. Actually, it'd be sort of fun. We are doing some development in that. Let me back up a little bit and just give you an idea of what our overall philosophy is. Obviously, anybody can outside do their own interface to us for remote operation. We're going to provide a few solutions from us also. From a hardware standpoint, we'll be bringing out later this year a K4 Mini, if you want to call it that, or it used to be called a K, like a K30, but we're going to call it a K40 or just a K4 Mini. But small panel, exact same front panel as the K4 we've got here, same pan adapter, everything display. For those of you that saw us a date and a year and a half ago when we showed the K4s, I had one hooked up that looked like, right next to another one, and actually all it was the front panel with processor inside, Ethernet out the back, and it was remote controlling the other K4. And it wasn't streaming audio and pan adapter data, and it wasn't a finished enclosure. But it was a streaming pan adapter data. It just wasn't streaming audio at that time. And had full control. Also had a basic front screen reproduction on a tablet that I was feeding over the network there to show the Wi-Fi network, and able to actually tap on the screen on the pan adapter. So basically, it's the same thing you're seeing reproduced on the screen next to me here on that tablet. And adding, streaming sound and basic control for microphone and everything else to it, that is a fairly straightforward thing to do. So, but you need an app with all the other buttons. What do you do with the rest of the buttons on the radio? So we've actually been working on that from a software standpoint. So I'll show you actually a current design concept on it, where actually it takes, it's using the same interface software-wise that we wrote the code for this. We can reuse a lot of that screen, but add the buttons to it. Give me just a second here. I'll bring that screen up. I'll share a screen for you guys here. Actually, I'll show it to you first on the tablet here. I think this is a Surface tablet. It runs under Windows 10, I think, on it right now. Just turn that on. Find the button here. And let me bring it up here. So here we go. That's what it would look like on the, let's see if that comes through. Well, it's not too bad. I'm picking up a little reflection off of the light above me here. So you can see we basically are using exactly, it's not coming there great because it's probably blooming a little bit. But I'll bring up, just so you can get a feel for size. You'll be able to actually spin the dials on the bottom there, of course, or plug in, say it's like one of these KUSB guys here, and be able to control it externally too. And this can also run on the regular PC desktop too. And as a matter of fact, I'll show it to you a little bit higher res. Just a second here. I've got that on my other guy. Let me share the screen. And let me share that.
1 moment.
I hope I'm not talking to you, Siri. I guess the SH, I said the SH, it came out that way. She thought I was talking to her. But, give me just a second here. I got to drag something down here and make it span the screen here. That's not what I was looking for. I wanted to make, oh, here it is. This is this guy here. There we go. Can you guys see that? I reproduced the screen in high res off another machine I've got in here. Anybody not able to see it?
Where to go? Yeah, I see it. It's good.
All right. So as you can see here, this is in development. It's not going to be out next week, but this year we're definitely going to have this. And it may look a little different than this in the final version, but we basically are taking and this is written in Qt, if you guys are familiar with that, in terms of the graphic interface for this. And this is compilable for either Linux, Windows, and I think even Mac programs. And we're just using that same coding interface to add the buttons and virtual knobs around it. And of course, the back end is where you hit, so if I hit any of the buttons here, like menu, and so these will actually work directly right now as it is, because this is live on the touch screen. You can do it with a mouse on a desktop computer if you don't have a touch screen, but on a tablet, you just tap on them exactly the same way I do over here, and they change and things pop up and so on. That'll happen exactly the same here. So the same user interface and the same basic buttons here. You could either you could tap this and hit the button up and down to change the speed, or I think you can spin your finger around, but they're fairly small. I think you'll be able to use virtual like a VFO if you want external for it too, if you wanted to tune it that way. in terms of adjusting bandwidth and things like that. And there may be a slider. There's a few things we're looking at changing on that, but that gives you an idea of what it would look like coming out. And as you can see, it looks, it's quite reasonable to look at that on a tablet. It's not going to make you squint too much to use it. And we'll probably have some versions that are more pan adapter centric and things like that. But the back end basically has to, we already have the code to handle, of course, the streaming pan adapters. I showed that, it shows. And the basic remote control. Instead of having the physical buttons on a K40, you're just doing the virtual buttons for the ones here that reproduce all of the stuff that you normally have for setting the radio and getting stuff set. In terms of noise blanker, preamp, things like that, like you see on the right here. All the back end is exactly the same. What's nice architecturally about the K4 is, from a software standpoint, we basically have a client server system where we have user interface started with a K, the KUI for user interface. That is what you see on the screen here, on that little screen. That's the component you see right now that is reproduced on the middle of the tablet thing I was showing you here. It's the same CUI running in both places, and that demo I did just had the CUI. We actually recompiled it to run under Linux under a window inside of Windows when we were doing it for the shows. But that didn't have all the extra buttons needed, which is where a lot of the lines work. And of course, the streaming audio portion back end has to be put in there too, from a software standpoint. But what's neat about that from a radio standpoint, we've got that running in the radio, which talks physically to the front panel, handles the display, everything there. And then that talks to a program called KServe, our server side, which basically is the traffic cop for the whole system. That talks out the Ethernet to all the remote control coming in. It handles the streaming of the audio going out to the internet. And of course, the pan adapter data is routed through it out for external use. And if you have another version of CUI running externally, either on a software application like this, on a tablet or on a desktop, or of course, inside of another physical box like a K40 Mini. Those come in and say, hey, I'd like to be another user interface application. And the server says, oh, great, I'll open up another one for you. Just like we support multiple serial streams or COM streams over Ethernet and USB and so on. You can have multiple user interface sessions also. And of course, the radio is going to be on the same frequency for each and things like that, but there's some minor things in your display and stuff that are unique to your side of the viewing stuff that necessarily can be adjusted just for each user. So if you have the bandwidth, you could have multiple users, but from this state, you've got the radio, of course, with its user interface, and then you're coming in, say, from a tablet running this software, or from a K40 coming in over the network, and they both can run simultaneously. And basically, radio acts exactly the same. It doesn't care. It actually says, okay, I got a command that said turn the noise blanker on. It doesn't care. It came from the front panel on the physical radio, or from a remote input over the Ethernet, or from your program over USB in your house if you want to. So it'll support that. Both of these are ones that are not going to be out right as we're shipping right now, but actually over as the year goes on. Hopefully, software version and it will be out here hopefully in the next before the summer hopefully. And in terms of the K40, I'd like to have that at the same time too. We're holding on that until we've got really high flow on the K4s, just to make sure we don't slow things down in terms of getting stuff out the door.
Okay, I'm going to go back to questions.
Okay, I'm going to drop the shared screen. I can bring it back up if people want to ask more questions about it too. Go ahead, Kevin.
Bill Nowicki, God, I can't remember his call. Will K4 have better transmit signal purity than the K3?
Well, that's the pre-distortion thing that people are asking for. It's similar to the K3 in terms of IND because you're running 12-volt based FET PAs. That's pretty much all the radios out there are in the same range in terms of transmit IND. In terms of the basic raw hardware on the radios, there's no magic there. I mean, you could put a 200-watt or 300-watt PA that you wouldn't be running at 12 volts for that, and operate it down at 100 watts, and you have better IND, obviously. But that's sort of wasteful for most applications. But the best way to do it is with the pre-distortion we're talking about, and that's where we built that into the radio as an option down the road. We just didn't want to get ahead of ourselves and promise that right at first ship. So we want to make sure we get the rest of the radio done. So I'd say it's very similar to the K3, and equal to or better than most other radios that are in the same category.
I'll add one comment.
Stay tuned though. Yeah, go ahead.
That we've done a tremendous amount of work to make sure we don't have any transmit phase noise issues.
Oh, yeah, you believe it. Yeah, absolutely. We want to have, obviously, you have to have clean, in this case, everything from the source, the digitally generated signal, all the way up through the chain, so you have clean phase noise, because obviously you don't want to transmit a broadband noise signal like the smaller mobile radios do typically, things like that.
There's a lot of questions, and I'm trying to get answer as many as we can here.
Yeah, fine.
I think Dean asks of what I consider probably the best question that I've heard tonight, for me at least, is, will time domain and frequency domain noise reduction be available, or we'll be able to use those both simultaneously?
Good question. And
that's what I said.
Because the noise reduction here is all done in the DSP, and that's a good question. Depends how much bandwidth we have in terms of when we're doing the spectral subtraction stuff. That would certainly take up more horsepower. So, and that's more frequency domain. But I don't know. I'll have to see as we keep adding improvements in that area. We might be able to. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think there's an email with Dean coming, I hope. People would like to know about the antenna selection. Both there's a question about what's the RX selection, and a related question is band data. Good, go for it.
Okay. By the way, let me answer that quick. Repeat the question and make sure I got exactly what they were asking, Kevin. You asking receive antenna selection?
There were two questions. One is do we put out band data for each of the receivers?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think the band data always well, depends how you get it. Actually, yes, you can get it for each of the receivers, but you basically have to.
Let me try and answer.
Let me back up a little bit. I'll let you pick it after too.
All right, go ahead.
We put out BCD band data like the K3 does out the ACC jack for the transmit frequency wherever you're transmitting. So that one's going to follow your transmitter. Then you have the FA and FB commands that you can get over serial over Ethernet, the standard commands to get the frequency back for either of those two VFOs. And you can also figure out which one's in transmit, I believe, by over serial commands. So you can use that to get the other VFO frequency range that you're tuned to. So that you can get in real time. But in terms of the BCD band data, that always just follows where the transmit frequency is. Is there more you wanted to add to that, Kevin?
No, I think that you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay.
And the other question,
receiver selection, you're asking about that, right?
Well, the other question was RX antenna selection.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So at the bottom of the screen, if you look, actually, you don't see it pop up yet. Let me back up. On the radio, on the left side here are two buttons. You can see my finger going back and forth here. On the left is just antenna. So if I tap that, you can see antenna 2, antenna 3 changing there right above, say that where the FT8 stuff is. And you can see it goes away. I have no antennas 2s and 3 hooked up to this radio right now. And I have both guys on 20 meters sharing the same antenna. So you're saying, gee, how did I, and also could I do something different where I transmit and receive on different antennas? So if I want to do that, there's a button on the right for RX antenna. Like K3 had it, just had a single input jack to handle that. We've got a much more flexible matrix, especially if you have the Cat4 auto tuner, because there's a whole bunch of relays on that do receive antenna selection more so than what you can do without it. Without it, you can basically go from a single transmit antenna to receive a TR antenna on the K4 without the auto tuner or K4D. And also there's 2 additional inputs, I believe, both an RX antenna input, and then if you aren't using the transverter in and out inputs, the transverter in can also be used for an HF through 6 meters receive antenna input. If you've got the ATU board in there, on top of that, you've got the option of receiving off the other antennas you're not using on its 3 antenna outputs. So you end up with 5 selections. It gets pretty fancy here. So if you tap the RX button, I'm going to do that now. If you hold it, it's the sub receiver. If you tap it, it's the main receiver. So think A and B for main and sub right now. So if I tap that, you can see it pops up. And right now, I'm sharing the transmit antenna for that. But say I have a dedicated receive antenna on 20 meters for some reason, or say I was on 160 especially. I can go here and say, okay, I want that to be K4D. It can be RX1 or RX2. Those are the 2 inputs. RX2 is the one that RX1 is like on the K3, you have a receive in and out. So the in there or out in. The in there is RX1, and the same thing on the back of this radio. So you could put filtering in between if you wanted to, also like we do in the K3. RX2 is where the transverter if you're not using transverters, and of course you're on 20 meters, probably not right now. That becomes another antenna input for receive. You can share it with the transmit antenna, or you can also have it go to what we call the opposite transmit antenna. And I forget which one that picks. It's not turned on yet, so that's why it's not implemented yet. Also, you can pick. You can say I want the receive antenna always on antenna 1, regardless of what antenna I'm transmitting on. Maybe I have 2 different transmit antennas. Antenna 2 or antenna 3. These are the ones that you're on your ATU output that are selectable for all 3 of them. So you've got that capability for the main receiver. So I'm going to put it back to share it with the transmit antenna. If I push and hold it, now it sees in the left side, you see sub antenna. It happens to be I'm sharing that with the transmit antenna. So there's a 3 dB splitter that splits those 2 together. But I could say I want that one always on RX1. And I could be on different band with that, or I could be over here on antenna 3, which is my 160 meter antenna. Say it's 6 meters, and I want to monitor 6 meters. This is a K4D, what you're doing it this way. I want to be able to put the sub on a different antenna. On a K4, the sub is always in the same antenna as the main receive antenna is on, because they share the bandpass filters. But in the case of the K4D, they can be different. So you get that extra flexibility with the K4D. But that basically, you go back and you can basically, I just went back to transmit. I can then look at receive by holding the receive antenna button. You can change those in real time. It just pops it up and says, what antenna do you want? It's pretty intuitive that way. That was something we worked through, and we'll go back to sharing the sub receiver with it too, that our field testers worked over with us. So I hope that answer. If it didn't answer the question, feel free with a follow-up question. If Kevin sees it, he'll forward it over to me. What else you got, Kevin? We got down to 10 minutes here, so yeah, I got to cover a few other things. Give me at least 5 minutes at the end to cover some other stuff relative to shipping and that stuff.
Okay, I'm trying to look to see if there's another really important question. Victor Echo 3 Delta Sierra Dana, how does the AGC flexibility of settings compare to the K3?
I think equal to or better. Basically, you can set the thresholds and slope on that the same way you did on the K3. It might even be more. I have to go back and look at it. They're always adding new stuff, and I haven't had to tweak with it lately, so I don't have a good answer. Do you know anything else, Kevin, on that? But it'd be very similar to what you had in the K3.
Yeah, as far as I know, I never thought there was issues with the K3 AGC flexibility, but we definitely did it better in the K4. But I don't know how much better we want. So, okay. Someone commented, well, Rick, of course, commented, nice slippers, Eric.
Yeah, we don't wear shoes in the house, so I've got my sheepskin slippers on. I didn't realize that the camera went down that low on the ground as I was walking around. There you go.
Does the pan adapter Spectral have auto ref?
Yes, it does. So the display button down here you see at the bottom of the screen, I tap on that, brings up another number of things here. And again, these are tap and hold buttons. The left-hand one there, this is for adjusting the pan adapter basically. And you can also pick what it applies to, just the LCD, just the external, or both. In this case, since I'm sharing the screen, because I'm not showing that separate pan adapter only display. I'm just going to stay on LCD. And you can pick VFO-A, VFO-B. Some things affect both VFOs all the time, regardless. But here I can turn the noise maker on just for the pan adapter. I can switch the pan adapter, of course, between a single band or the other VFO, or split between them like that. I can change the span, of course, and adjust that. And if you go over here to reference level, you can set it to manual or auto. And you see all of a sudden there, it just adjusted the auto level. And as the band changes, it'll follow that. It resamples periodically and readjusts. And you change bands, it'll automatically adjust in the auto mode. So when you're in auto mode, both pan adapters are in auto at the same time. And then I can go back to reference though if I want to, and then I can say, hey, I just want to adjust A up and down here. I can do that. And I can go over here and want to do B up and down. You can do it manually. So whatever you like, we can do both for you. And of course, you can also change averaging. I've got just an average of fortune on. You want to see how these things get frantically fast. I don't know if this will show over Zoom very well. I just turned off all the averaging. That's almost too fast for most people to look at. So you can see the FTA. But you average a little bit also reduces pan adapter noise because it averages the noise to a DC level. If I go real slow, you can see the noise get averaged out as I increase the averaging there. I'm just adjusting VFO-A to adjust that, by the way, too. I usually run it like 3 or something. That's still fast enough. You see the voice peaks going up and down, the CW going up and down. But you've got the option to go as fast as you can go. And even at the fastest here, we're still got excess processing overhead in the pan adapter stream, so we can actually build that 1 megahertz span from the 384s, 3 of those stuck together. And we're down about the last, give me one more, Kevin, and then I got a couple of quick things.
Yep. Can you demonstrate how to show 100% spectrum or 100% waterfall?
Yes, there's a button here on the same display I had up here on the display. Lower left-hand corner, if I push and hold it, that's waterfall. And now I can just adjust the ratio between the two. So there's full spectrum. There's full waterfall. And you can see my cursor in between there. That's that vertical line you're seeing on there. There's not a lot of FT820 is sort of dying right now. Oh, there they are. They just woke up. So if I go all the way to waterfall, you'll see them on there. I can also change the scale. So I can, I think it's set to about 30 dB right now, but I also can change the intensity of the waterfall colors. So I can basically multiplier effect. So I can, even on weak signals, it'll make them look more intense. Oops, I'm on the wrong VFO, excuse me. I picked VFO A. I can make them brighter. Of course, it makes the background noise a little brighter too. But you can do that too. You can actually basically have a multiplier on the panel, so you can go full either way. A couple things I want to cover real quick here, Kevin. I don't know if it's going to cut. I'll go over
Go for it.
an hour and a half if we can. I don't know if it cuts us off or not.
Go for it.
But the shipping, we are shipping, though obviously it's been slower than we want these last couple of months, especially in December when we had the logistics problems I mentioned in our newsletter. That seems to be getting straightened out now. I've actually just got in another set of 100 board sets. We've got all the sheet metal we need. We're in the process of building those up right now. So you'll see even a nice jump in stuff here over the next couple of weeks, which will be nice getting these guys out the door. I know a lot of you are excited, and I was trying to get IZT's his order, which was fairly early and quickly, and then I got caught up in that stuff in December, but it's coming pretty quick here now. So that's coming finally. I apologize. It's never fun to go through all the stuff that any of us have had to go through this last year, but we managed to come through it out the other side financially healthy, which is good. You guys have kept ordering product for all of our other products, which has been wonderful, and they've actually shot up. So that's been very helpful, obviously, through everything. A couple quick features in here. We already talked about the virtual K4 interface that we're working on right now, so we are aggressively working on that. CW QSK we just improved up through about 50 words a minute. You can even hear activity between your dots and dashes, and certainly down at 39 words a minute, you can, or 40 words a minute, you're going to pick up. So I think one of our stuff, N6XI, or somebody reported that just recently. They were able to hear quite clearly when another station was transmitting. So we've got very good QSK on it for the CW guys. By the way, I didn't mention mouse wheel turning per VFO. You see the A and the B icons. There's a A and B gray, but this little B like a mouse in each of the windows. So I also can point and click, by the way, with the mouse. And by the way, right-clicking the mouse, you can see me moving it there in the window on the right B VFO. If I right-click it, I'm moving the B VFO. You can see, oops, there's somebody talking there. We can hear somebody here. There's some sideband. Then I can use the little icons you see at the bottom in the waterfall section actually show. Let me change I can change the tuning up by just touching the digit in the screen if I want to, or pushing a button. Oh, he stopped talking. I was going to tune him up. Oh well. But anyway, you can basically change the mouse wheel focus. If I click on the left mouse button, of course it moves the. You can tap the screen too. But say I wanted to move the receive window for FT8 over here, I could tap with my finger, or I could tap with the mouse, and then I could fine tune. You can see the wheel there. It changes, and you'll see the icon because I used the left click button to click VFO. If I want to put both VFOs in the same window, I right click in this window, and now VFO B. We still have another receive window over here. It doesn't care. VFO B and A are the same guys here. There's some guy tuning up over there on the other one. And you can see the wider width there for that guy, the sideband guy. Once I go over there, I'm a much wider span over here. If I right click, it moves it back over into that band. Now, if I had different bands set, you'd hear the relays clicking as you moved your transmit, or your B VFO, which can be transmit, but also your receive, back and forth. Getting down to 1 minute here. I'll see if there's anything else on my list I wanted to bring up real quick. Built-in manual, real quick. If you push the question mark in the lower left-hand corner, this is updated every time you update software. And I can just scroll up the screen here, or use a mouse and whatever. You can tap on stuff. You can jump around. It's all HTML linked. There's even one on the web, and you can get answers. It also will follow the last button you pressed. So you can go in there and say, what the heck was I doing here? And it'll help you how to get out of it. This gets updated automatically with the radio in real time as we do new software releases. So that's a neat feature for it. In addition to the written stuff, we give you an introductory manual of how to get going, pictures of all the displays. That's all in the web under our support manuals section on the web there. Real quick, let's see, I already mentioned the dual PAM. We have dual text decode. I didn't have time to go into that, but you can decode PSK31 and RTTY and show them on the screen there. And we also have auto spot. So if you're in a couple 100 hertz, 100 hertz either way of a carrier, it'll get that final tune and get you exactly on 0 beat on it if you want to be. And we have a status area, by the way, we can bring up and have different parameters we're looking at. I can look at transmit parameters. I can show all sorts of stuff. Of course, I have a date and time on the lower left-hand corner. I'm just tapping on different things I can select. But if I want to see all parameters, I can bring up a temporary thing here. This shows us internal stuff in the radio. And if you're worried something's not working right, we'll, and you know, say something broke on the radio, we'll first have you bring the screen up and say, hey, what's going on? And that'll show you what's happening too. I'm basically just tapping on the date and time you see with the Zulu time on the left there. And by the way, you can also set it to your ID. So I've got WA6HHQ and the Zulu time there also. Oh gosh, a whole bunch of other stuff, but we also have screen capture built into it too for people who like to capture their screen and show what they've got on there. So you can dump that onto a little USB flash drive. And hopefully, I still see people here, so we're still going. If we can go over, and you guys want to hang around, you're welcome to hang around. I'll answer more questions. I was worried it was going to cut us off, but somebody might just send it. If you're still there, one or two of you send a text saying I'm here. Don't send a whole bunch of them, but just make sure. I still show 228 people here. So, and some of you guys raised. Okay, unless you're still here. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so Kevin, what else you got for me?
Well, people kind of quit asking questions, but Ed Parrish had a few more questions. I'm not sure we answered his questions completely about this. I'm going to try and find Ed in this list and let him interact and talk with us a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I got to find Ed in the list here. Ed.
K1EP.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't do that. Allow to talk. There. Okay, Ed, your mic should be on. Ed may have disappeared. No, it says it's here. He's still here. Allow to talk.
But you have to unmute on his end. But
I thought I unmuted him.
Usually it's an ask to unmute. The other person has to unmute themselves, so you can't spy on them.
Yeah, I set it to allow to talk. Yeah, no, dang it, wrong one.
I think you could just send it again too if you wanted a different question or something.
Yeah, I think Ed signed off. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Tom asks, if you click on 14, does it bring up a band menu?
I don't think so right now. It brings up a memory menu, actually, I think is what it does, which is what I just did here when I did that. And but generally, you get back up there again. I think that's what it did. Yeah, and I can right now everything programmed by memories, but that could be in there if I wanted. But you've already got a band button here, so you just click on that and it brings up the bands. So it's half a dozen one than the other, but we just kept it as a big band button.
Dean wants to know, can he save the entire state of the radio, including multiple setups?
We're working on that. I don't think it's in the first ship, but that's one of the goals here, to be able to save the state of the radio onto flash drive. One of the things we have to determine is, what makes sense for, say, if you're a multi-operator. By the way, the sideband behind me, I just saw it on the screen there for that person that was interested in that. I can even tap and tune that in. Or
Hello.
Oh, is that Ed Parrish?
Oh, right. Eric,
No. We actually turn the audio on if you have a question for us here.
I'll send you an email, so I won't take up your time.
Okay. You can go ahead and mute then so we don't have to hear you breathe. But Kevin just opened it up because I guess he had some follow-up to that. So in any case, what else, Kevin? I answer here since we're going over a bit, but everybody seems to be hanging around. We're still above 200.
Kit, when will we offer kits?
We wanted to wait. Obviously, we've been making sure manufacturing went up first here. And as we're getting this under control, I'd say it's at least another 90 to 3 or 4 months out, because a kit manual takes a lot of work to get written. And we take everything we learn as we assemble it in production and reduce that down so it's real simple in terms of getting things together, obviously, so you're less likely to have problems. But I definitely still plan to make it a kit. and get it going. It won't be substantially less than the radio because the cost of manufacture is almost identical, kitting versus testing, but there might be obviously be some savings. But of course, you end up knowing how the radio works too, which is pretty cool. There'll be some savings, but the overall process takes quite a bit of work to put that manual together. So we're going to be quite busy on that. But we wanted to get all this stuff at a level, and we'll be adding stuff to the current manual first because we want to get all that fleshed out even more so. But again, because we've got the structure right now where the more detailed manual is inside the radio too, in terms of quick answers to all the features and stuff. And then we'll put more and more, of course, on the web too over time to get that. But that's always in front of you, which is nice.
Rick is asking again about demonstrating high noise elimination on 40 meters.
I don't have a 40-meter antenna hooked up.
I didn't think so.
I'm trying to think.
PV Bob suggests that you demo the antenna config option so you can toggle antennas without using the touchscreen.
And I haven't set up to do that. Bob is ahead of me on that.
Yeah, I haven't done that either. I was going to say
I don't even know how to use every feature of my radio yet. I know what we've designed into it, but that from the UI standpoint, I haven't used every single. So I have to admit some ignorance here too sometimes. But
see, Bob McGraw asked if FCC tests have been completed, and the answer
yes. Actually, for this is probably European listeners too. FCC Part 15 is the only thing you have to test for the US. There's no FCC requirement for immature radios beyond that, and that's just because we hook up to a computer. It's sort of redundant because the radio has to be a clean transmitter to start with, and also we don't want something noisy. It's going to mess up your receiving stuff. But and that comes along free with the CE testing, which we've finished all the lab work on. It's passed everything. We've got the reports written up. We're just going through the paperwork and making sure everything's okay on it. We don't have to actually formally submit it to anybody because those are on record with the test house, and they're what's called an authorized. I think it's authorized body. So the final okay on that from our standpoint is we're happy with it. It will occur here over the next several weeks. And that mostly is so the Europeans can start ordering from us because obviously there's still a lead time for them getting it. Though we already have spots slated for our distributors over there, so they'll be getting some fairly soon, probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks, hopefully, if everything stays on track. Maybe a little bit longer, depending how you've got to get all these current ones out for our current guys. There's some onesie twosies they'll get, but for their demo stuff. But the production for customers, obviously, because we've got a pretty good backlog here overseas, will probably be a little bit longer, until we get caught up more with the current ones we've got. But the FCC and CE stuff's all passed, so we're happy. We're happy with that, and actually had less headaches, I think, than we had on the K3. We were actually more worried that we were going to have something, and then the final production radios turned out not having any shielding issues and things like that we all worry about that you're going to find in the lab that we couldn't find in our non-shielded lab. So, but it turned out to be fine. So we're happy with that.
So we said we couldn't do the config. Tom wants to know, so earlier, Eric, you showed a display that showed all the voltage levels and various things inside. Does that display stay up during transmit?
I don't know if that complete one, we do have TX voltages here. I can try it here and see TX parameter, all parameters. And if I put it, make sure I'm in test mode. I am, okay. Notice it says TX test in the middle of the screen there. So you can't miss it. So you're saying, no one's hearing me. You look up, you say, oh shoot, I'm in test mode. So if I put it in transmit mode, looks like it stays up. In test mode, by the way, right now I've got a test SWR display, but yeah, so it looks like it does. I know that was important to do that on several other ones here too. We've got a basic one where you can basically have TX parameters. So I've now gotten a lower left-hand corner voltage, current, watts, and SWR, and of course that's up while you're transmitting too. So yeah, it looks like it'll give you everything. Though generally, that's all you need to see. The other ones, unless there was you had a big problem with, they say we could be watching 12 volts and things like that. That's certainly an important one when you're transmitting. You can see if your power supply is dipping down. And mine's set right around 14 volts, you can see there. And I'm drawing with everything up pretty bright right now, 1.7 amps on receive. But you can see all the low level and other stuff. It's not stuff most of the times you have to be worried about, but it's useful to us if you have a problem with the radio. Don't panic if you see a 5 volt thing reading 4.9 volts. That's still within spec, or 5.1 like you see there. But But this is more for us if we're going to ask you questions, what's going on with things. But you can sort of see all the other things going on. Pretty handy.
Did you cover shipping status and what we're going to do for shipping?
I think I just did. We're basically in the first group of the first group orders that had large deposits. We're working our way through that. We had a huge blast, when we first opened up ordering right before Dayton, in fact, the night or day or so before Dayton. We also had some early Dayton orders that we actually are prioritizing early in that group, even though that first group snuck in while it was really supposed to get turned on at Dayton in the morning, but people were able to get in for about several hours overnight. So we're honoring both of those, but we're sort of interspersing the Dayton orders because we want to make sure those guys, that was the whole point, was they come to the booth to order. So we're getting those out, and that's what we're working through right now, is those big bursts of that. That went on for a number of weeks afterwards. And as we get through that, then you'll start seeing, in terms of you're back on the list date-wise, yourself catching up. And we'll also, I think, hopefully by the end of, let's see, we're coming almost at the end of this month. So in the next 4 weeks or so, we're going to have a much better, as the flow now is going a lot better. I don't have any hiccups. I basically will be able to give people a better, more accurate feel of where they are, at least for the ones that are fairly close in, because we're going to keep accelerating our production rate. We did this with the K3 too, and I remember back in the K3, every time we doubled our production rate, our order rate doubled, and it was like we were playing catch up with this thing. It was running away from us almost, and we did catch up. But in the case of the K4, we've actually already seen, as we started trickling radios out, our order rates jumped up, but it'll even go up more as we have more volume out, because you guys are going to hear them on the air and talking to your friends and stuff. So we'll be our goal is to keep doubling up that production rate as we go forward. So we'll keep doing that and ramping up, and then we'll have even faster time, hopefully, than I'm telling people right now.
Kilo Radio 2 Quebec, Doug Zwiebel.
Hi, Doug.
K3 has an ICW tuned bar graph for zero beating. Does the K4 have a CWT bar graph?
I think it does, and I'm not sure how to turn it on this one. I have to ask Wayne.
Zero beat by my ear.
Yeah, but this one, you can see it on that one. I don't know where Wayne's got it in the display. I haven't been using that because it's a good example. I don't know if I have it. No, I have to have a signal generator hooked up right now. I don't think I can tune FT8 with it automatically, but the auto spot, just push and hold the spot button over here, and it goes and tunes it right in. But that said, if you need that help, I think we've got that in there. If not, it should be in there. I'll make sure we get it in there. But, because we got the same capability. It's the same DSP code. It's already in the DSP, I know for sure. So I should have it.
Well, maybe we should wrap it up.
Yeah, it's getting, we went 20 minutes over. Sorry for that, but we kept a good chunk of guys here, almost close to 200 still. So John Stenogrevics, did we get one of his questions? He raised a hand, it says here. I don't know if that's.
Let me find it sort of down here.
Yeah, it might be too far to dig it out.
Stenovich. No, I didn't see a question from him, but yeah.
By the way, K3CT asked, does the radio audio, I just happen to scan the list here, mic and speaker appear as a Windows sound devices? Can the radio mic be used to record messages on the fly with NM1MM logger and play them? I don't know about the last piece. You had the monitor turned on, and we basically have line in and out, either physical lines or over a built-in sound card chip inside the radio that is showing up as a Windows device over the USB interface. So I would think in theory, if you had monitor turned on, you could use your mic to record stuff in M1MM. I'm not sure the mechanics of M1MM record, but I don't see any reason not to do that. But in terms of the receive audio codec and transmit audio codecs from the mic, those are all through a sound card interface or line in, line out, physical lines. We reproduced all the same physical lines that the K3 had. And actually, I can show you the back of the K4 if you have it. Well, you probably see it online, but you can see, yeah, there it is. It's hard to read, but we've got the over here. Look at the screen, it's backwards for me. Line in and line out physical, but they're also on this USB-B connector up there. They'll come out of USB-A connector, they're like the flat ones on the other end. And that's the sound card inside does that. So you've got both of those available to you to work with for the audio. And I think that's about it. I think probably my voice is going to die on me here too. We'll do some more of these. This is somewhat informal. That's why I said I didn't want to do like a big, PowerPoint type thing. You guys see enough of those from me at the shows and stuff. Anyway, I want to be able to answer more questions. We'll certainly try to do more of them. And I apologize for not being out there as much physically. Obviously, it's hard to do trade shows these days. But I'll be doing a virtual talk at the virtual HamCon, or what is it, Hamcation in Florida from here. And I think they've got the virtual Hamfest, the QSOA Virtual Hamfest is happening. We did in August, and that was huge. We had just 1,000 people on one talk. It's pretty crazy. They're doing that again, I believe, in March, and we're participating in that too. But we'll be out there. So thanks a lot. And again, we're trying to ship as fast as we can and ramp it up now. And like I said, we just got another set of 100 boards in. And of course, we already have the sheet metal and other pieces. So, and I've got my long lead time parts covered for certainly many hundreds here past where we're at in terms of going forward. So we're not going to be hiccuping much of that, we hope. We've got all those parts coming in. So we'll get going. I'm sure there'll be little hiccups along the way, but hopefully nothing major going forward. So thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. And feel free to send comments about what you'd like to see in the future in terms of presentations. You might send that to sales@elecraft.com. That'll get to the right person. Or they'll forward it over to the right person. Or even better, just send it to Margaret, Margaret, at elecraft.com. I think she's listening, so watch out, Margaret. and any suggestions you have for future presentations, what you'd like to see us do. And hopefully I may hook up. We have that simulator we use at the show that actually has a full digital recording of about, I think it's about 100 kilohertz of the spectrum of CW and sideband that I can play back on any band. And if I hook those up, I can actually demo that, even if the bands are dead, like it is at night here when we're doing this. Or if I get my 40-meter antenna back up at the house here, that came down a little while back when we were doing some work, I'll be able to get in the lower frequencies a bit in the nighttime. So there you go. Anyway, thanks a lot for coming. Hope this was informative for everybody, and we'll do some more of it. So you guys have a good evening. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you staying interested.
Okay.
Bye.
So I think you have to.
Yeah, I got to press the button.